Somebody with low agency or no agency is somebody who lets life happen to them, whereas somebody with high agency, they happen to life.
Welcome to King Moves. In chess, the king moves one step at a time, but that single move can change everything. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and simple actions that could lead to the next breakthrough in your business and life. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa. Entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures as we think out loud, challenge assumptions, and uncover the small moves that create big momentum. Welcome to King Moves. Let's start the conversation.
All right, so Justin, I just showed you this clip of a Facebook reel that I found pretty impactful and thought-provoking. And before we talk about it, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's one of those that definitely gets you thinking a lot. And the premise of it is this individual, this James sharing, and I've forgotten his name, Ethan.
Jason Pargin, P-A-R-G-I-N.
I see he's got quite a few videos up, so people should check him out. I think if this is the quality, that's really, really cool. It gets you thinking. But the premise was he shared the underlying story about from a few movies around why did the hero essentially not just make the decision to go on the bold adventure? Why did the hero have to wait to become dragged from their home or have some major disaster happen in their life that forced them to go? We all have the choice to go on that adventure ourselves. Why do we have to wait for somebody else to tell us to go? And for me, it's this idea. It goes back, and he used the word, but it's this permission factor. It's this permission thing. I think so often we tend to live in a world that we get stuck in this space in our lives where we almost feel, and not everybody, but a lot of us will feel that we have to get permission to live a big, bold, adventurous, extraordinary life. It's not something that we're allowed to just choose, because most of us, I'm putting this in air brackets, most of us normal people, we don't live these big, bold, adventurous, extraordinary lives. And that's reserved for the special few. And unless we come and get claimed and taken out of and our lives and worlds as we know them, unless they get blown up, we've got an excuse to play it safe and not go after that adventurous life and the extraordinary life that we're wanting to live, because we can say we've never received permission. We've never been given the opportunity. We've never had the status quo of our current situation absolutely obliterated so that we had to choose another path. And there's a safety in that. And I'm giving a lot of words now, but there's a safety in that because we're then able to say, hey man, that's just not what life gave to me.
Yeah.
Whereas what this gent was really challenging on is, well, what have you chosen to go and take?
Right. You know what? I'm going to see if I can share this. This is by Jason Pargin.
In the original Star Wars, the scene where Luke comes back to find that his aunt and uncle have been murdered by the Empire. And you might say that lots of movies in this genre have this scene, some kind of a terrible loss that motivates the hero to go off on the adventure. Okay, but why? This is something that's actually extremely important to notice in the stories we tell in our culture. Because you would think we want our heroes to have agency. Why couldn't it just be his choice to go off on the adventure? Why was Katniss put into a situation where she was basically forced to make the choice she made? Why didn't Harry Potter just run away from home to go to Hogwarts? Why did Hagrid have to basically come and drag him out of his house? Why couldn't Marty have just volunteered to get into the time machine? Why did he only go after Doc Brown got shot? Because in this genre, the fantasy is not just, what if I, a regular guy, got to go on an adventure? Because after all, there's nothing stopping you from going on an adventure anytime you want. You could just leave your house and go do something weird and new. And you're saying, well, I can't. I've got a job. I've got a family. I've got bills. But Frodo had a job and bills, or at least he had obligations, same as Katniss. Same as Neo. He had a job and rent. So the fantasy is, what if somebody came along and gave me permission to do this? Even if the permission comes in the form of a doctor telling you have a terminal disease. Like, we have multiple huge pop culture franchises where cancer is the thing that started the hero on their journey. And I've always found that so interesting because it says so much about the psychology of the target audience. Because so many people out there see themselves as this, as imprisoned in a situation. But the fantasy is not just, well, what if I had magic powers and then I could use my magic to get away? Because that's not what happens. The fantasy is, what if someone would come and blow up my life for me? What if somebody would come along and make my situation so intolerable that I would be forced to move? It's like you're standing on the shore across the river from the life you want, but you're so scared to leave dry ground. So you sit around and fantasize, what if somebody would come along and just throw me in the water? Because deep down, I think I could do something extraordinary if somebody would just come along and give me no other choice.
It's funny, man. Every time I watch that, I think about something different in my life as well. Especially when he just said, throw me in the water. That's how I learned how to swim. I was taking swimming lessons and then I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. And then the instructor just threw me in. And all of a sudden, and I was like, I was, I was flailing in the water. And then I was screaming like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? And he was like, look at what you're doing. You're swimming. And I was 8 years old. I'll never forget that moment. I was like, oh, okay. This is how you do it. But there have been so many moments in my life where I felt like a calling that I should be doing something else. And I've been resisting, trying to stay in my comfort zone. Like one time was when, I talk about this a lot, when I was working at the strip club, taking out trash at the strip club for 2 years. And I had gotten comfortable in that lifestyle. But I kind of had this feeling like, okay, there's got to be more to life than this. I felt stuck at the same time, you know? And then one day I was getting dressed to go to work at the strip club and I had the news on the TV. And literally, as I'm putting on my pants to get dressed to go to work, the strip club is getting shut down on the news. Like I see there are helicopters surrounding it. It's getting raped. You can't make this stuff up. It's like out of a movie. And I'm looking at this like, seriously, this is my job. And they're raiding it. They're putting the girls in the back of a van. They're taking all the liquor out. That was one of my jobs, was to count the inventory, all of the liquor for the bar. And they're the police are taking it out of the bag. They had lost their liquor license, so they got in big trouble. It was a whole scandal. But I was like, I guess I don't have a job anymore. And that was it. That was it. That was the end of the job. It's crazy. So I was forced into the next thing. But why couldn't I have just done that on my own? And you've heard the term post-traumatic growth, right? I wonder, is that
Indeed.
applicable here? Yeah. Because I talk about that in my book, Wealth Beyond Money. It's like we often need that trauma, that push. All of those characters that he talked about, those movie characters, there was some type of trauma that forced them into that next phase, into that adventure. Do we need that in life? And if we don't, how can we activate action to adventure without trauma?
Well, maybe it doesn't have to be trauma, but essentially what he's describing is what so often gets used to describe the catalyst for most, I don't want to say all, but most change. And that's where the pain of the status quo becomes more than the fear of the unknown and the other side of the new thing. So exiting the abusive relationship, the pain of that abusive relationship has to be bigger than, and I think we've mentioned this on this pod before, but has to be greater than the fear of, will I ever find somebody else, or am I going to be on my own for the rest of my life if I leave this thing? Just to use a really crude example. I think that's what it is. And that's where he speaks about like your life being blown up and somebody coming to give you permission. What it does is, in your eyes, it crystallizes the fact that I don't want to be there. Like, I don't want that to be my future. I don't want that to be the rest of my life. And now you've got no choice. It's been taken away, but it's kind of shown you that status quo wasn't what you wanted, and the pain of staying there would be greater than what's on the other side, or that fear of the unknown on the other side. But the word that also stuck out to me now, Ethan, was agency. And I think I kind of let that pass me by the first time I listened to it. And the best description of agency, or high agency and low agency, I've ever heard is somebody with high agency, or somebody with low agency or no agency is somebody who lets life happen to them, whereas somebody with high agency, they happen to life. And I think that's what he's describing here, is how do we make that decision or that choice that, hell yes, I'm going to happen to my life. Meaning like I'm going to be the master of my destiny. I'm going to really dictate the direction of my my entire life rather than, well, that happened, life happened to me, that's why I'm here. I mean, you shared a personal story of yours, and on my side, I can't think of necessarily a particular moment. Maybe the divorce might be one of those, and come back to that. But
Mm.
I hid behind a line that I used in so many different people and so many different conversations, and it was this idea that I always said, yeah, I'm where I am at because I really want to live an extraordinary life. And that might sound like I was a high agency individual, but actually I was hiding behind that, waiting for somebody to give me permission to live this extraordinary life. And I was being able to use this line of I'm still where I am because I want to live an extraordinary life. So I haven't settled for what I shouldn't have settled for, but I was just hiding and essentially kind of in certain areas of my life not going anywhere because I was waiting for something to happen rather than taking control and making the decision. And so only once I really reframed that and started going all in, and that was the biggest thing, go all in on the thing that you want. You want an extraordinary life? Okay, well, you need to flip and go all in on an extraordinary life. That means making some big decisions, moving away from some things that are possibly no longer serving you or just not the right fit or whatever it may be. And then things start falling into place and things start happening. But yeah, so much of the time, like sometimes these things that we think we want, they become the crutch holding us back. And for me, that was my plan is to live an extraordinary life. I'm not going to settle. And by saying that, what I actually did was I settled a lot of the time for things that I shouldn't have.
And a lot of times I found that it's helpful to just say, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, really, if we paint a picture of, if I make this decision, if I go down this road, what's the worst that can happen? You find that most things in life, most things, not all, but most things are reversible. You can hit undo, you can hit Control Z and go back to where you were if it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. But we have this fear, because it all boils down to fear, right? So in the back of our mind, we have this fear of and loss aversion keeps us stuck when it could be much, much, much greater if we step outside of our comfort zone and jump into that other life that we want. And I think that's maybe the reason that this reel, 'cause I don't think I've ever revisited a reel I've seen on Instagram or Facebook before like this. But I think the reason it resonates with me so much is because I've tried to trick my mind into just jumping into these situations without needing the traumatic experience or without needing the permission or the force. But I don't know that I've consciously done that or been able to articulate that well until now. But looking back on it, I do talk a lot about it in my book, but not in this way, like looking at it through the lens of pop culture and movies and stories and stuff. And we see this over and over again. But even with my speaking journey, I just deciding to go all into it full time a year ago was something that there was no traumatic experience that made me do that. Everything was fine. I could have kept doing what I was doing, working in my business, doing a little speaking on the side, but deciding to go all in on it. I think knowing the possibilities that were out there, maybe it was a lot of this, watching this type of behavior in my life, these patterns, and doing a pattern interrupt and saying, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? So, I mean, I'm fortunate to be in a situation where the worst that could happen is I fail, I fall flat on my face and come back and keep working in my day-to-day business. But, a lot of times I think we just end up in that trap.
Yeah. What's interesting, and I mean, the whole way that this video was set up is that, and you referenced it now as well, pop culture, all the movies, they follow this narrative and this arc. And the reason for that is because it appeals to so many of us, because that's exactly what we do feel, is that somebody cannot go and do that thing without somebody helping them along the way. And maybe what we need to do is instead of thinking that we have to be the one that just makes that choice ourselves, maybe choose a mentor. Like, okay, if I don't believe that I can do this all on my own, who can I partner with? Who can mentor me? Who can help me or speak me through this thing so that I can go all in on that thing that I want? So is there, I suppose where I'm going to with that statement, is there a different way to get the permission that we feel that we need? Maybe it doesn't have to be a trauma or somebody coming to blow up your life. So maybe what we can be proactive about is, all right, who's that mentor? Who's that person going to be?
Yeah. Having a mentor makes it so much easier. And if you don't have access to a mentor, use AI. This is
Yeah.
one thing that I teach in my workshops, and it's actually in my book, in my ChatGPT to Double Your Business in 90 Days book. But create a future version of yourself and let that be your mentor that guides you. So, they say that most people use the number one use of AI is therapy right now. But I'm like, if you're going to use a therapist, why not have a therapist that knows where you want to go in life and can help
Mm,
guide you there, help guide your decisions. So I built Elder Ethan as a custom GBT who I confer with, and it's me from 25 years in the future. And
mm,
I've created, in the knowledge base of this GPT, I've created a description of Elder Ethan's life and all the things he's accomplished and his day-to-day activities, and very, very detailed, like what his house looks like, his cars, his family, how the community respects and
mm,
reveres him, different role models he's had along the way. And I put those names in there. And it all factors in because my ChatGPT knows where I am currently. He knows where I want to go now with Elder Ethan. So when I talk to him, he talks to me as if he's speaking from the future, and he's saying like, "Oh, I remember when I encountered a similar situation," and he
mm.
tells me a story. So it's kind of neat because even though people say, "Oh, it's AI and it's made up or whatever," but we watch so many movies, we know they're made up, but they still
Sure.
stories inspire us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that
Yeah.
helpful. And so I'll leave somebody with that. That's my king move. Go build a future version of yourself or your own custom therapist in AI, your board of advisors to help guide you.
Yeah. I think for my king move, I'm going to challenge people to go read my newsletter from, you can find it on my website, but it was, uh, I called it, Where is Your Shadow? And it's
Mm,
just you've made me think of this. It's so often our shadows are behind us, and that's the way, and that's a metaphor for we feel like we're being chased by something, or we feel that we have to be pushed by something. We have to, and in the context of what we're speaking about now, your life has to be blown up in order to be able to move towards the thing that you're wanting to move towards. Whereas what you spoke about now and what I referenced in this newsletter is how do you notice when your shadow is in front of you? And it gives you a different feeling when your shadow is in front of you and you feel like you're moving towards it. And what that can be a metaphor for is deciding the type of life that you're wanting to live, the type of person that you're wanting to be, and then feel like you can have the agency to actually go after it rather than be running away from something. So it's the shift from being chased or being pushed to moving toward and or being pulled by the thing that you're wanting to be. I'll leave that with the listeners. Is go give that a read, and between this podcast episode, the video that we've shared, and your reference to your book and this newsletter, hey man, maybe there's a simple
yeah.
action that they can
Yeah.
come up with rather than us dictating it right now.
Don't be scared. Go on that adventure. Life is short. That's a wrap for today's episode of King Moves. Quick favor before we go. If this episode made you think differently or helped you see your next move more clearly, take 30 seconds and leave us a review. It helps the show reach leaders who need these conversations. Remember, in chess, like in business, one right move can change everything.
Take today's action step, make your move, and build momentum. And if you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who's ready for the next breakthrough. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly conversations.
Until next time.